Hello, everybody. Come inside, come inside, come inside. We have an amazing session for you all lined up. We're going to wait a little bit, wait for more students to come inside. Um, we have our trusted partners over at Comcast. They're going to be talking about standing out with your personal brand today, okay? So we can get started. I want to bring the moderator, Miss Misty, to the stage. She's the senior program manager for You Learn engagement team, and she'll help introduce the rest of the panelists.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Miss Great, and it's great to be here with you today. I'm a senior program manager with Comcast on the learning and development team called ULearn. In my role, I work with our business partners for their learning and development needs. So, for instance, our finance team could come to me, or our team can come to me and say, our leaders need coaching, or they need presentation skills, or they need executive presence. So, what I'll do is I'll say, here we have a great course for that, or let me create a course, which is always fun, or let me create what we already have and put it in a package and create a learning journey. Sometimes, though, they come to us and say, we need Juniper or we need Python. So that enables me to work with my other learning and development peers in ULearn in the technical space, and we can meet some of their needs as well. I'm very excited about today's session, Stand Out with Your Personal Brand. I have a great panel joining me in a few minutes, but first, I'm going to talk a little about personal brand and how you can take ownership of yours. Excellent. So, sorry, technology is not my friend on this second Monday of the week. I'm not able to. I'm not able to advance my slides, but I will keep going. So when we think about personal brands and reputation, you might wonder how they are different. So reputation is how others see you, while personal brand is how you want others to see you. So it's essentially the intersection of how others see you and how you see yourself. In other words, it's the visibility of the values that you outwardly represent. Brand is in the room when you're not there. Hold on, I'm trying to. There we go. Here we go. There we are. So as you can see, as I was saying, reputation is how others see you. Brand is how you want others to see you. So brand is in the room when you're not there. There are three aspects to your personal brand. So you have inherent. So this is what you're born with. So think about your generation, your ethnicity, your race. You can't do anything about that. And next we have acquired. So those are influenced by your experience and choices. So the occupation you choose, the school you go to, the friends you choose as well. And then organizational. These are experiences that you get where you work. So depending on where you choose to work, what kind of field you go into, those influences you as well. So these identities all shape who you are. So we create a brand with what we do, what we say, and how we carry ourselves. Our brand leaves an impression and communicates an essence to others. So the good news is that you have control over your personal brand. You can take charge of this. And here's a short little exercise that I'm going to share with you that shows you how to do that. So this is how to create your personal brand strategy, as you can see. So step one is to define yourself in 3 words, also called the 3-word self. This takes time and it takes introspective thought. When you know yourself better, you have more self-confidence and you can create clarity around your goals. So step 2 is to ask how someone else would define you. And then step 3 is to take what you've done, your 3 words, how somebody else defines you, and distill the description into one sentence. You might start out with more than one, but break it down into one sentence. I recently did this exercise, and it was really impactful for me. I should have done it years ago in my career, but here I am. So what I did when I step 2, at first I didn't want to do that because that's kind of intimidating, right? So I asked several people how they would define me, and what I got back was really enlightening and kind of shocking, to be honest. But here's what I came up with. As a ULearn engagement partner, I'm an authentic and approachable solutionist that helps business partners achieve their development goals. So I have that one sentence at Comcast. We like to call that an elevator speech. So if you're in an elevator with somebody and you have to tell them what you do, one sentence works. So as you can see, with a little reflection and thought, you can create a personal brand statement that embodies the brand you wish to have. So if you need to impound on that or make that bigger as you go on throughout your career, you can do that, but that is a good start. So now let's meet our panel and talk some more about how to stand out with your personal brand. So Kia, I'll toss it to you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Misty, for the overview and the introduction. I am Kia Jones, and I am the Director of Customer Experience at Comcast. So what does that mean? I am responsible for finding holes in our processes to make the experience of the customers, all over better. So excited to be with you all today.
Thank you, Kita. And Katie, we'll go next to you.
Sure. So hi, I'm Katie Pilot. I am an internal communications manager, senior manager here at Comcast. So what that means is that I work with our leaders to make sure their teams understand how their work impacts the broader strategy of the company, and to tell the broader company a little bit more about that work. So it's a lot of emails, broadcasts, panels like this with the leadership, as well as strategic positioning for executives, both within their organizations and with Comcast at large.
Thank you, Katie. And last but certainly not least, Justin.
Greetings, folks. I'm Justin. I am in HR, so I provide support for our HR corporate function. So it's a lot of fun. I get to partner with our talent teams, our ULearn teams, and then a whole bunch of other random spots in HR, and just provide people support because people matter around here. So a ton of fun. Glad to be here.
Thank you all very much. And we will get rolling. Katie, so I talked a little bit about creating an elevator speech, or creating one sentence on your personal brand. Can you tell us a little bit, how did you create your personal brand, or how did you do that early in your career, or if you had to do that now, how would you approach that?
Certainly. So I basically did exactly what Misty said to do. It's worked out great. I spent some time sort of thinking about both how I think about myself and how I want to show up at work. And then I did take some time, like Misty said, sometimes it's awkward to go up to someone and say, like, hey, what do you think about me? So I put together a little survey and circulated it to my team. And I took a look at their feedback and sort of what I had written about myself and brought those two things together. So it was a great opportunity to see, like the way that you think about yourself and the way you come across to others could be a little bit different. So I combined those two things and worked to put those things together. So my personal brand is about being professional, accountable, and collaborative. I had never really thought about my collaboration skills as part of my brand, but it was something that I saw in the feedback from my teammates. So I do certainly encourage, if you're looking to define your brand, connecting with some people you trust, because they can really give you insight that you might not be able to see for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. And I like I said, I found that very thought-provoking for myself to find out more about myself, but asking other people too. I told them to give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I got all good, but never know. Justin, I'm curious, did you have a different approach, or have you done an exercise similar to do a brand or an elevator?
So what I found interesting, and it's similar but different in the same way, is even when I was in college, we started taking those assessment tests like DISC or Insights. And that's when I found out that I was an extrovert. And I was like, oh, I had no idea what that is, just somebody that likes to talk a lot, apparently. So as I got into the business world and realized, hey, you know what? I kind of lead with this energy. I just kind of lead with it in everything that I do. So essentially just be yourself, man. Just being authentic, which you guys already talked about, and then having that flow through your work. Holy cow, you'll build a brand. And if your brand is detail oriented, making sure that everything is very specific, and just let it flow through your work. So yeah, be yourself. Good times.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that's what we talk about a lot with our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just be yourself. I like that. So Kia, what advice can you share on balancing between talking about authenticity and organizational identities? So I know when I first started in my career in the corporate world, I thought I had to be buttoned up and polished, and where does that authenticity join in? So can you give us any advice on how to balance that?
Sure. I think Justin summed it up quite nicely. And so I would say your professional and personal identities have to be in alignment. If they are not, a couple things can happen. But the first is people can experience you, and they will experience different variations of you. And then they're not sure like who the real you is. And so I think when creating your brand, you really have to make sure who you are aligns with the brand that you want to build. So for me, my brand is, to be fearless. I'm not like Justin. I am an introvert at heart. And so talking to people, particularly people who I don't know or have a relationship with, I struggle. And so a part of my brand is being fearless, right? Like being able to do what I need to do inside the workplace, but still be authentic to me. So who do I need to speak to? What do I need to speak to them about? And so being intentional, purposeful in some of those conversations, but having them nonetheless, right? And that's where fearless comes in. My second was to be influential. In my role, I do not, I have one direct report, and we support our entire region. So it's a couple thousand employees. But if they are not reporting to me, they really don't have to do what I'm asking or buy in or any of that. And so how can I get folks to do what I need them to do because it's the right thing when they don't report to me? And then the second was transparent. So once again, I need people to trust me, right? And see me as a trusted partner. And so when we're having conversations, I need to, help them understand the vision of the customer experience, why it matters, and communicate in a way that's going to be easy for them to receive. And so those three things, being fearless, being influential, being transparent, marry well when I look at my personal life, right? We're raising children. I don't want to yell all the time, but I want to use my influence to lead them. Transparency. We have relationships outside of work, right? And so that matters. So the point is, I won't beat this horse to death, but the point is, definitely need to be in alignment. Otherwise, it'll feel very tiresome to do every day because you're trying to be two different people in the course of 24 hours, and it's hard.
Absolutely. I think folding all of that in as a fellow introvert, being purposeful, but also you think about being purposeful about relationships too that you create, not only in personal but professional as well, go a long way. So thank you. Katie, do you have any other advice you could share with us around that point, the balance?
Yeah, certainly. Sort of building off what you both just said, at my very first job, my first corporate job out of college, I was basically a robot. The culture at that company was very much like, go in, keep your head down, get your work done, get out of there. And so that's exactly what I did. And it sort of aligned with what my parents had taught me about work. And I think this is still like an evolving field, like that we learn that people do better when they can be themselves at work. And so it was so bad, I guess, that I went on a trip with my boss, just a one-night trip to do a photo shoot. And we could not even make conversation with each other over dinner, even though we had worked together for over a year. So, I mean, it was really interesting to realize that I hadn't shared anything really about myself with this person that I talked to every day. And it wasn't until I got put on a different team with a group of people that worked together all the time, traveled together for work. They were like software trainers. And they kind of called me out and they were like, why are you such a robot? And so they helped me come out of my shell at work and share things about myself as a person and my interests and the things I think about outside of work, my hobbies, my worries. And it just really opened doors. Like those personal connections can really take you far in terms of working collaboratively with people. Like I said, that was something I didn't realize was sort of part of my brand, but feedback I got from my team. And I think I wouldn't have been able to get there if it wasn't for that team of people saying, like, you need to bring more of yourself to work. So I do think it's still important to think about the way you come across and you want to remain professional. And that is a word that I got from my teammates in my survey, but also being a little bit more open and authentic is a good line to walk, because no one wants to be a robot, because it's really tiring to be a robot all day. And then you have all this energy to let loose at the end of the day too, like Kaya was saying. So yeah.
Absolutely. It is exhausting to be a robot. And I like how you mentioned, I too, early in my career, thought I was supposed to, as I said, act a certain way and be a certain way. So it's that organizational influence that we talked about earlier as well. So thank you both for that. Justin, I'm curious, and this occurred to me within the last year, admittingly, how do you monitor your brand? I was thinking about your brand evolves, whether you want it to or not. So is there something you do to monitor your brand? And then on top of that, how often do you recommend like a brand review, if you will? So just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Good question. So it sounds so cliche, but you've heard feedback is a gift. You should ask for feedback. And it's like, oh my gosh. So it is true, right? You do have to go out there and get feedback. Now, how often? I find it funny. So I'm in HR, so I'm always involved in hiring people and in that nature. So you can tell the real gung-ho people that have just got here, because every single meeting you have with them, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? It's like, put the brakes on. All right. Let's get the work aspect of things in here first. We'll give you feedback. But right now, you're still getting your ears wet, right? You're just learning your path right there. So essentially, work, find out those that cadence for the times when you need to reach out and get feedback about, hey, this is how I think my brand is going. What do you think? And then sometimes people will just come right out front and let you know, hey, and just in my aspect of things, I just started a new role here. I started it less than 3 months ago. And, I lead with energy. And now in just random meetings that I'm coming to, here comes Justin. Y'all better turn up your energy because he's coming hard with it now. So yes, I find it funny. Yes, that is kind of unsolicited feedback, but it does have a positive impact on the team. You also kind of know when to dial it back as well. So definitely go for the feedback aspect of things. Try and read the room. Not every opportunity is an opportunity for feedback, and then you can move forward. So,
thanks, Justin. I like that. And in Comcast, we have we do quarterly reviews as well, and we have a feedback tool which I've most recently started using, and you can just solicit feedback from here and there, and they'll give you, again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's useful as well. Kia, asking you the same question. How do you monitor your brand, and do you take the opportunity to review it as well?
I definitely take time to review it. I would like to say on an annual basis, but I don't do it as often as I probably should, but definitely whenever I'm going to take a new role, because I have to look at what that role requires and how my brand aligns with it. And if I need to make tweaks, then I will. Check-ins with my peers, the folks that I'm working with, are ways that I sort of manage it to ensure that who I think I am or what I think I'm giving off is what's being received. And I can't tell myself that, right? So using that 360, we have that feedback form, Misty, that you talked about, where in the company we can send it to folks and get feedback anonymously. So I think that's another best practice, because sometimes people, they don't want to tell you. Sometimes people, they want to give you all the feedback, to Justin's point, but then there are some, who are a little more reserved. And so that option that is, what am I trying to say? The option that is, Lord, the word just fell right out of my head. Somebody help me? Anonymous. The option that is anonymous can be better, just to get true feedback, so that really how others perceive you. So sorry, I had a brain lapse.
No worries. Also, I don't think I realized you could do anonymous, so that's good to know, because I get asked that too, and I was like, oh, I don't want to tell you, so that's a good feature as well. So thank you both very much for that. Katie, moving along, how we talked about being one person and being another person and being authentic. How should we think about managing our personal brand internally versus externally? So, when the folks on the session today go out into the work world, if they're not already, you'll work with vendors, you'll work with outside partners, you'll work with other people. Is there something you should do differently internally than you do externally, say with your team or your work peers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and something that I hadn't thought a lot about until maybe this year. I listened to an interesting podcast actually about building your personal brand, and they were talking about the idea of being verbal about your brand, sharing who you are as part of your LinkedIn, or depending on what kind of work you're doing in your social media profiles. If you are someone who is like a marketer or networker or something like that, putting your brand out there so people sort of know what to expect from you. And it also helps keep you accountable as well. Like if you are, like Kia was saying about being fearless, if she is thinking about pushing herself to be fearless and getting the work done that needs to be done, and people come to her and they're like, I really like that sort of angle or vibe, then she's sort of able to work towards the same sort of brand that she is building. So I think that's something that was really interesting to me. I certainly think that using LinkedIn to its ultimate capabilities is really valuable, but also very time consuming. But I think especially early in your career, taking the time to get out there and share about the things that you're doing and the things that you're learning and sort of like who you're becoming early in your career can be really, really valuable.
Absolutely. Do you happen to remember the name of the podcast?
Maybe. Let me Google it real quick.
All right. Sorry. I put you totally on the spot. I appreciate that. Thanks. And Kia, do you have anything to add to that about managing, internally versus externally?
So 100%. And I'm going to take the opposite approach as Katie did, and think about, I want you all to think about, trust. My grandmother always said, trust is very hard to build with certain people, right? But it's very easily destroyed. So the same thing is true with our brands. And so I think about my husband, who's a high school principal. He had 2 candidates. And so I'm walking through the process with him. He's like, help me decide. I feel like I can't, go wrong with either one. So I said, let's look at their Instagram profiles. And he's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And so we pulled them up. One was private, and so we couldn't see because we weren't friends of this person. And the other was not private. And who they were online and how they presented themselves at the interview were in direct conflict with one another. And so he hired the person that was private, because we don't know what they're doing, right? But the one who public, you can see everything. It would have been a bad look, right? Like you're saying you want to be a teacher, but everything here, sort of goes against that. So what I would say is be mindful of what you put out there, because once you put it out there, you can't take it back in most cases, right? Like once you say a thing, you can never unsay it. And so just as you as we are on social media and using that in our personal lives, I think it's just very, very important to be mindful of what we're liking, what we're sharing, and just what we're putting out, because people will look at that, and more companies, I think, are using that as a determining factor as to who they will employ versus who they will not.
That's a great perspective, most definitely. And it never goes away too once you share it. So it's out there. So awesome. Justin, I want to move on to think about how you put your brand out there, like in communications, like either in the workplace or, as Kia said, on social media, how to bring your brand forward and some things to consider with doing that in your daily communications.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what's interesting is, speaking of social media, when I was on social media, I stopped a long time ago because I'm old now. But literally, when folks type in all caps and they're like screaming at you, and it's just like, okay, let's not do that. And I think it's the car insurance commercials where they're teaching older people how to function online. So especially when you're in the workplace, something as simple as making sure there's no misspellings, making sure that you are brief, bright, and to the point, making sure that you're actually providing somebody, I don't want to say professionally written, but a well-written professional email. Because some of the things I've seen from interns, new hires, they'll send emails to VPs of organizations like they're having a chat or a text message. And I'm just like, whoa, yeah, take that back and make sure this is the brand you want to put forward. Like, no abbreviations, be brief, but let's make sure that you show that, hey, I have something here to offer other than just a couple of random comments. So simple things like that go a very long way to just promoting and building that brand in written form or digital form. And then everything that Kia said about online, and that you had mentioned as well, Misty, like I warn my daughters all the time. I'm like, guys, don't post nonsense. Daddy's not going to see it because I'm not online, but that stays with you forever. Keep it in mind. So, okay, I'm old.
Awesome. Same. Brief, right to the point. I'm stealing that. So thanks. Katie, I know you work a lot in your role with communications. I know you handle a speaker series that we do here that's very excellent as well. So I pose the same question to you. How do you coach to bring that brand forward when you're in communicating in the work?
Certainly. So yes, like I was saying before, part of my role is working with leaders to help them show up in a way that their teammates understand the work that they do, but also sort of understand the culture that they're surrounded by. So something that we work pretty hard on is working with those leaders to show up authentically. Sometimes, you get on a stage in front of 2,000 people and that can be really nerve-wracking, and you lose, like, I don't know, some of your pizzazz, maybe not Justin, but most of us. And it's sort of coaching those leaders to say, like, you are here because you believe in the work and you believe in what you're doing and you're looking to motivate your team. So helping to think about the why behind some of the work that they're doing to draw out that authenticity can be really helpful. And also, I mean, this is maybe not so much brand, but does tie back into the polish. If you are getting on stage to do a big presentation or something like that, practice does make perfect. And we work with a speaker coach here at Comcast whose adage is that everything that you present, you should rehearse 8 times as long. So if you're giving a 15-minute presentation, you should rehearse for 2 hours. And obviously that is so much time, but I think it's a really good guideline to think about the amount of time that can go into really showing up the way that you want to show up. So I think that has been a helpful sort of tidbit in coaching our leaders who certainly don't have that much time, but at least we'll get them to rehearse with us, like one time before we put them on stage.
Excellent. That's a great tip. I will use that as well. Okay, so we have one more question here, and I'm thinking about Kia. This goes to you first. So I've been in the same role for a very long time, but I've changed teams 85 times because that's what we do here. But how do you establish a brand with a new group, and why is it important to maybe rebrand or just bring your brand forward as you have been?
Good question, Misty. I think when it comes to new groups of people, the best way to communicate that for me has just been to say it, right? Like transparent. Hi, in a one-on-one session, I'm Kia, and these are the things that I'm working on. And also to ask for accountability, right? If you ever experience, me in, direct conflict with what I'm saying I want to be, please pull me up. Like, let's have a conversation. So it sort of helps others know like where you are, maybe why you're there and what you're working on. And then if you have a good peer group, they can give you, feedback or be a part of that check-in process, Misty, that you had talked about a little earlier in the conversation. And I think that this is important because sometimes we just see ourselves in a way that others don't. And so it can be a reality check. And, we all need that from time to time.
Absolutely. That definitely goes a long way, to be candid. This reminded me, I was recently working on a project with someone that I knew but hadn't really worked with. And quite frankly, she was being a little bit funky about things. So I talked to somebody who knew her and I said, this isn't like her regular work, what's going on. So we talked to her and it comes out that she's been having some problems. So we were able to help her and talk her through that. So I think just being open, honest, again, building those relationships definitely goes a long way. And Justin, on the same topic, is there anything, being 3 months in your role, that you can share with us going to a new group? I'm sure you just came in all sunny like you are, but is there anything else that you adjusted?
So honestly, when I had to meet the leaders, one of the first things, I am very big into any of these personality assessments because they give you an insight as to how this leader works. The one that's my favorite is insights because they have colors, and then by different people's colors, you can tell who they are and how to connect with them. So one of my highest level leaders is yes, exactly. Thank you, Kia. So one of my highest level leaders is red. Now, for all of you out there that don't know red, it means be bright, be brief, be gone. So I know my first meeting with him, don't come with all the yellow energy because he ain't trying to hear it. Just, hey, list out the facts, let him know how the relationship is going to work. And then we start molding a little bit. So we've met a bunch of times now. That leader understands who I am and kind of I understand who they are. So I'm able to get a little bit of yellow energy into them and still gather the data that we need to get things moving. But really, understanding your leader, building those relationships, because Comcast is a relationship company. It's our tagline. And then being able to move forward. So I'm curious. I hope Katie gets to answer this from a communications perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So this portion of our fun talk is over, but I do have a question for Katie from the audience. Somebody's asking, how did you become more of a conversationalist, Katie?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say that it goes back actually to that speaker coach that I mentioned before. Part of his presentation when he's making recommendations of like how to give a good talk or share ideas in an impactful way is that people resonate with stories much more than just like facts or sort of like statements. So I also resonated with his point about rehearsing. So I did prepare these like little stories in advance. But I think, especially if you're thinking about it when you're preparing for interviews or things like early on in your career, as you're getting to know your colleagues and networking with other professionals, is to sort of have some back pocket stories that you can tell that illustrate who you are as a person and your experiences and things like that.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah, practice. I can't stress this enough as well. I'm going to throw this out to everybody, but I know Kia alluded to this. Could my personal social media content that are not particularly professional potentially impact my personal brand during a job interview?
100%. Yes, it can. And so I am on social media. I have Instagram because that's all I can manage because I too am old. However, right, like my page is private. I do not have anyone that I work with follow me on purpose, right? Because people will forward and share and things like that. And then just as a general rule, I don't post things again that are in direct conflict with how I present myself, right? So I don't think that there's anything too crazy, but the page is private because what happens is they begin to make assumptions, right, about what they're seeing or what, they're reading. And then they in turn make those same assumptions about you and how you maybe will fit culturally or not fit within their team dynamic. So it can definitely hurt you, I would say, more than it could help. So just be careful and be very intentional about what you put out there.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
two
Anybody else want to chime in? Yep, that was great.
Ditto. No, that's well said. Well said.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was also thinking as you were talking, Kia, I was 100% listening, but with LinkedIn, you know, watch what you put out there too, because people use that mostly as a professional network. But I go in there sometimes and sometimes people are sharing things. So anyway, just watch that as well. Most definitely. This is for anybody. I'm not sure. How can we get ideas for content for our social media accounts?
I can chime in there, just piggybacking off your mention of LinkedIn. I think that LinkedIn certainly, and this is also thinking about what I had said about like maybe being a little bit more verbal or open about your brand on social media. I was sort of thinking LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the most professional focused social media, but I think there are a lot of people out there that use LinkedIn really well. So I think you can go. I'm thinking of someone in particular that I follow that's sort of well known in the Philadelphia area who his brand is called the Awkward Networker. And so he uses LinkedIn to sort of like post some thoughts about networking or job searching or connecting people. And he really does a nice job with it. And I can find his profile and drop it in the chat here too. But it's a really good example of what you can use LinkedIn for. And you'll probably also see if you hop on LinkedIn and just sort of look for active people from Comcast. A lot of people are also posting when they are part of cool conferences or events at work to sort of say like, this is a great opportunity that I had. So I think that's a really great way to use the platform. Like I said, I don't use it to its full potential. So if you look me up, it's going to look real quiet. But I think there are a lot of people that use that well. And even something like this, if you want to post on your LinkedIn that you got to spend some time going to a conference like this, I think that's a great way to show that you are out there and engaged with your career and learning new things. So that would definitely be my advice.
That's excellent advice. I appreciate that. The awkward networker, is that what you said his name was? Yep, everybody go follow that. And also blow up Katie on LinkedIn. She has nothing. This next question is great, and I'd like to chime in before throwing it out to you. What's the biggest mistake you've made while building your brand, or how can I fix my personal brand if I've been going about it in a counterproductive way so far? I just would like to say, not a mistake while owning it, but being an introvert and thinking about everything 50 times after it happens, just owning it. Like if you've made a mistake, go up to somebody, own it, apologize. How do you fix it? Everybody makes mistakes. We have the autonomy in our role to have that safety that we can make mistakes and we can learn, and we tout that throughout the company most definitely. But I just say, sorry, I made a mistake. How can I fix it? Or this is what I'm doing to fix it. So I just wanted to say that. But what else do any of you have to say on that?
I absolutely love that. Like that's one of the things that folks struggle with is, hey, if you made a mistake, it's not a big deal. Own it. And then let's make the appropriate corrections and then move forward. So in building your brand, sometimes my energy goes way overboard, right? Like I might be talking and it's confidential information and my voice carries. If you notice, I'm in a nice white padded room over here. So I'm not, blabbering and bothering other people. But it's just once that feedback was given, like, hey, you're talking about something that the whole floor doesn't need to hear about. And I'm just not aware. So it's being like, okay, understood. I did. Now you make steps to ensure that doesn't happen again. Absolutely. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Justin. Yep, we're all human. Mistakes happen. Katie, Kia, anything to add?
I'll add. So I had a leader that I just, could not stand. I was trying to think of like a really nice way to say that, but I think the feeling was mutual. And, I allowed my feeling for her to dictate how I would respond, how I would react, how I was, right? Like how I showed up. And it was, again, it was not aligned with who I said I was or what I wanted to be. And so I think the lesson in that was, one, if this is a personal brand, something that you're working on, no one person should be able to, take you off course. And then everything that Misty and Justin said, I had to own it, right? And I had to look at my peers and say, you know, I've been letting you all down for months. And it has to do with, you know, our leader. So, and not even really, I didn't really mention her, but just to say, you know, I apologize. I will be better. And this is what you can expect from me moving forward. So owning it and then taking, you know, steps forward that is going to put me back into alignment, and then making sure that I'm showing up that way 100% of the time. So
That's great. And thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Here I go with the mute. We have one final question. Does an example come to mind of someone you work with or a colleague who has a great personal brand, and why does it stand out? As you're thinking, I will chime in. I recently got a new boss last December, and at first I didn't know her, and I was like, kind of, Kia. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but she has an excellent personal brand. I asked other people about her; they said wonderful things about her. She gives me feedback regularly, ask me if she can give me feedback, coaches me. I can go to her. I feel I can go to her with anything, even if it's like personal, anything like that. So I think she has a great personal brand, and she's just authentic and herself and a wonderful leader. So that's why she stands out in my mind.
I can chime in. I have worked with a few people who we joke that we know that they have a great brand because all of a sudden they are just on every project that we're on. And for that just indicates that we know that they are going to get the work done and that they're a pleasure to work with. And they just have really made a good name for themselves in the business. So there are certainly some folks who you'll sort of see that. Like if you start to see the same people around all the time, I think it's because they are known to be well liked and very either accomplished or effective. So that's certainly the benefit. And sometimes the detriment of having a great brand is that you only have so many hours in the day, but it's always better to be asked than overlooked.
Absolutely. And you all definitely have a personal brand. That's why I invited you today. So thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you for the questions. So in closing, I just want to say, when it comes to your personal brand, think about what you want your legacy to be. Be that, but bring it to another level in a consistent way. That's what you'll be known for. So I encourage you to seek out mentors that can help you build your personal brand, someone who you respect, someone that will challenge your thought process and help you navigate creating and maintaining your brand. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for that. We definitely appreciate your time, your effort, and for you all just being here today. So yeah, thank you all for that. Students, we do have additional networking events that are still going on right now. Just stay tuned. Bobby is going to let you all know how exactly you all can access those networking sessions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Now, this is your opportunity to do some networking. Now, if you don't know, your network is your net worth, and I hope you use that to your full potential, not only with your peers, but also with the companies. Because I got a note here. It says that you can access the networking lounge or visit companies' booths. This is a great time to connect with companies and each other. So we encourage you to go visit the space and build connections. I'll be hanging out there too. So come and check me out.